Superhero comics, which were once confined to society's fringe subcultures, have recently exploded into mainstream popular culture. Looking at the top-performing superhero adaptation films, one might reasonably conclude that all superheroes are products of one of two companies, Marvel or DC, that even the most casual fans can identify. Marvel and DC are the Coke and Pepsi of the comic book world. Generations of comic book fans have debated who would win the battle of the superheroes, and this debate isn't going away anytime soon. We are here to help, whether you're firmly on either side of the debate, trying to decide which side to support, or simply just curious about which one of the two is more dominant in business. So, join us today on our discussion on Marvel versus DC. We will be talking about them from an economic perspective, while covering their entire success stories, including some downfalls. DC Comics is an American comic book publisher best known for its Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman characters. The initials DC were derived from the company's popular series Detective Comics, which starred Batman. It is owned by Warner Brothers. Marvel Comics is a major publisher of comic books and related media in the United States. It is best known for its superhero characters such as Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Hulk, and Captain America. Marvel is owned by the Walt Disney Company since 2009. Their rivalry dates back to nearly 80 years. Initially, the two publishers' storytelling styles were noticeably different. On one hand, DC was known for his colorful stories about gods performing incredible things in order to protect humanity. When it came to superheroes, Superman was the gold standard, and he was surrounded by other characters with innate godlike abilities: Aquaman, The Flash, Wonder Woman, and others. Marvel, on the other hand, was known for taking a more human approach. Characters like Peter Parker were given superhuman abilities, while others overcame major flaws to accomplish great things, giving ordinary people hope that they, too, could reach their full potential. Like Tony Stark was a jerk who discovered the cost of arrogance, and scientist Bruce Banner had to deal with his destructive alter ego. As time went on, these lines began to blur. Some suggest that it was the result of the industry adapting to survive, while some believe it has something to do with the two publishing houses constantly swapping talent over the years. Marvel has made many characters famous through its films, whereas DC has only made films about the few popular heroes it owns. However, DC has produced some of the most iconic villains of all time, including Lex Luthor, the Joker, Two-Face, and Deathstroke. Interestingly, while Marvel's commercial success was initially tied to its ability to mimic DC's industrial strategies, DC has frequently been accused of attempting to mimic the seemingly universal appeal of Marvel's heroes in recent years. We could spend days comparing and contrasting the two, or simply listing all of DC and Marvel's movies, TV shows, or even characters, before getting down to the business of who did it better. So first, let's talk a bit about their success stories. Martin Goodman, a pulp magazine publisher, founded Timely Publications in 1939, which later became Marvel Comics, and its first publication was a huge success. The other huge hit was the publication Captain America, 1941, with sales of nearly 1 million. By 1951, it had changed its name to Atlas Comics. However, the Marvel era actually began in 1961, with the release of the Fantastic Four. But almost every great comic book story has a darkest hour moment, a point in the story when everything appears to be lost. The winter of 1996 was Marvel's darkest hour. Marvel's financial success had peaked by the early 1990s, after the company had grown in stature throughout the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, thanks to the stunning art and storytelling in such comics as Fantastic Four and The Amazing Spider-Man. However, a series of bursting financial bubbles and dubious business deals caused Marvel's stock value to plummet, and the company's future appeared uncertain. At that point, Marvel began to focus on a target it had been attempting to reach since the 1980s, the movie industry, along with Fox Productions. And things began to change. The X-Men and Spider-Man films were huge successes. Another breakthrough occurred with Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, when Marvel announced its independent production, which contributed to a remarkable change in fortunes. Later, in 2009, The Walt Disney Company paid $4.24 billion for Marvel Entertainment, surviving its darkest hour and pulling off a multi-billion-dollar victory. Marvel's profits in the 21st century were increasingly derived from toys, video games, and other merchandise featuring their most popular characters, as well as the production of a string of commercially successful movies. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has now evolved into one of the most profitable film franchises in history. And if we talk about DC, in 1934, a writer named Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson wrote a comic book, New Fun, under its own company, National Allied Publications, which exploded as a national sensation. However, he became bankrupt in 1937, so he sold the company, which led to the formation of a new company called National Periodical Publications, NPP. In 1969, NPP was acquired by Kinney National Company, which was later acquired by Warner Bros. Seven Arts. For much of its history, the company was commonly known as Detective Comics before adopting the name DC in 1977. The comic book industry experienced a sales boom in the early 1990s, with books tied to DC's massive The Death of Superman event selling millions of copies. Such expansion proved unsustainable, and by the mid-decade mark, sales had fallen to a fraction of their previous levels. Despite the attention given to DC's core comic business, in the 21st century only a small part of the revenue generated by DC characters came from the sale of traditional comic books. However, in the movies, DC scored two early successes, with Richard Donner's Superman, 1978, and Tim Burton's Batman, 1989, both of which led to successful franchises. Except for two Red films and a tri-star Supergirl film in the mid-80s, DC has been almost entirely a Warner Bros. Venture. Now, let's take a look at the numbers. Both publishers have had their fair share of massive hits and major duds. Worldwide, the relative standing between the two comic world giants is relative. Each regularly contributes to the annual list of best-grossing international films. And if you ask 10 comic book fans if they prefer Disney's Marvel or Time Warner's DC Comics, you'll probably get an even split. However, the business case is much more objective, and it heavily favors Marvel. While DC sales have occasionally surpassed or been close to Marvel sales, Marvel has consistently been the market leader. There are far more Marvel films than DC films, and they are far more profitable. Marvel has produced 48 films, which have grossed a total of $11.8 billion in North America, while DC has 29 films in production, with a total budget of just under $6.7 billion. The per-release average for Marvel and DC films is more than $200 million, with Marvel having a very slight edge, $247 million to $224 million. 58% of Marvel's releases have an adjusted domestic total of more than $200 million. DC had 48% of their films achieve that level. Furthermore, Marvel has 4 of the top 10 highest-grossing films of all time, with the recent Avengers Infinity War ranking 4th all-time with a worldwide gross of $2.04 billion, and Avengers Endgame at $2.798 billion. While The Dark Knight Rises, DC Comics' highest-grossing film, ranks only 24th in all time. According to a Medium data comparison, Marvel has made twice as much money from ticket sales worldwide in the last 21 years. You could argue that it has now released more films. However, Marvel has a higher average box office per film, with $687 million compared to $500 million for DC. So, the last 2 decades may have favored Marvel, particularly with recent blockbusters like Black Panther and Thor Ragnarok. Justice League, on the other hand, received mixed reviews. But let us not forget the Dark Knight trilogy's place on a pedestal alongside decades of beloved screen adaptations starring Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Marvel may be having its moment in the spotlight right now, but DC has a long history of great film adaptations under its belt. DC is doing everything it can to level the playing field. It has made significant inroads into television with Arrow and The Flash. Before Marvel even dreamed of the silver screen, DC had already begun its journey into movies. From blazing blockbuster highs to bumbling box office lows, DC's journey in film's universe has been one astounding roller coaster ride. So, do you believe I'm right, or do you have a different point of view? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you found this video informative and enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button as well. Thank you for watching.